Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of eHeroes. This episode is going to be a little different. Now, I always talk about entrepreneurship, and sometimes I bring authors on the show. Now, this episode, we're going to talk about meth, murder, and Amazon. Now, I had this love-hate relationship with Amazon. I think they're a great place to buy and sell stuff. But as I introduce this next guest, maybe he's going to shed some light on some things that you didn't know. So I want to introduce everybody to Jerry Drake, and he's the author of a book called Meth, Murder, Amazon. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
How'd
I
the book
appreciate you having
start?
me, John. Yeah, so it started by me essentially just selling my home. Everybody, I feel like most people have had that experience, buying or selling a home,
Mhm.
renting an apartment, whatever. And so I had this crazy situation happen to me and my family about 3 years ago, and it ended up taking us around different states. It had us, running from the cops a couple of times. I actually get accused of murdering one of my kids in the book. Get accused of making meth in my garage like Heisenberg. Breaking Bad. So all this stuff happened. I'm like, this is completely unbelievable. Like I tell people this story all the time, and they're like, "There's no way that's true." Like I wouldn't believe you unless you're telling me. I was like, "Yes, it definitely happened." And it was not the funnest thing.
Yeah, in one of my Rob versus books, I mentioned a scenario where I took my kids to the grocery store during COVID, and I went to buy some cough medicine, and they want me to show my license to be able to purchase over-the-counter medication. And I'm like,
Yep.
why? Well, and they said, because you could make meth with it. I'm like, one packet of cough
Yep.
medicine is not going to make anything.
Right. I feel like Breaking Bad's ruined it for so much normal things right now. Like in Colorado, I guess it's like a huge pandemic or epidemic in Colorado for meth. So they're like, yeah, there's even a hint or possibility that a real estate agent believes that there's been meth on the premises. They can make you get a meth test, and there's not anything you can do about it.
So how does Amazon play within this whole thing?
So I actually worked at Amazon at the time when this whole situation happened. So I wasn't in the warehouses or anything. I worked at a compliance part of Amazon within Amazon Web Services. So I was there for about a year, and then this story kind of happened. I was like, hey, I'm going to sell my house, no big deal. And then I ended up trying to sell my house, get accused of all these crazy things, and then I ended up actually leaving Amazon out of all this.
So they found out and they wanted to let you go, or
No, that's actually not how it kind of went. It was, kind of a mutual parting. Like I was moving from Colorado to Florida. They kind of wanted me to be more on the West Coast. And so I was like, hey, I don't think this is going to work out. I need to be closer to my mom. My mom had, early stage lung cancer. So I was trying to get closer to my mom. So I was like, hey, if I'm going to go anywhere, then, might as well leave, go back to a different company that I used to work for. And so I just kind of parted amicably with Amazon.
yeah, my son had worked at Amazon a couple years ago, and he said that they worked you like a dog, and
Yep.
he said it was just nonstop. He didn't even have time for a break, and it just yeah. There's robots there. There's this and that, and but the people that do work there are just constantly moving, and you know, if you take a break, you get yelled at. If you do something, sneeze, you get
Mhm.
yelled at, and it's like after 6 months of this, he's like, enough's enough, and he quit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a whole description about Amazon in the book. I liken it to the funny farm, essentially. Bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, running around in circles. Everybody says, do this, do that, right? And there's no clear direction. Everybody's got an idea. Too many Indians, not enough chiefs, essentially.
And the ironic thing, funny, ironic, but the thing is that we as authors, we hate Amazon, but we still have to put our books on Amazon
Right,
to sell
absolutely.
them.
They're the biggest platform for books, so it's like a catch-22.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't like about Amazon is that it's not straightforward. So if I put my books on Amazon, and for all you people that want to be an author, I encourage you to be an author, but you got to take steps to market your book outside of Amazon, because
Yeah.
here's the scenario is Amazon will say it's a 70-30 cut. So you get 70% if you sell it on their platform.
Mhm.
But the extended network, you get 30%. Well, they don't tell you that Amazon controls that extended network by creating 30 or 40 or even 100 fake bookstores under their own name. And when they sell them through that, they get more profit and you get less. And it's like,
Absolutely. And it's crazy too, because people will ask you like, oh, why's your book priced at this amount? Of like, I only make like $2 off like a copy of myself. So like if I list my book for 19 bucks, I only get $2 of that. Amazon gets 16 plus dollars. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, trust me, I would charge you less if I could, right? I'd give this
yeah,
book for like $5. Like,
I had a client, I think it was from Norway. I said, great. How'd you hear about me? Oh, I bought your books. Okay. And I'm thinking, they didn't show up in my Amazon thing. I don't know what he said. He got them from some retailer in Norway. And I'm like, probably never going to see any of that. But yeah, that's, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that as an author, marketing your book outside of Amazon is probably your best bet. And that's why
yeah,
we set up e-commerce sites and put our books on our own websites in hopes that people buy them directly from us.
absolutely. It's kind of like casting like a broad net. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, just going after Amazon. But Amazon certainly has the biggest share, I would say, of readers and market space. But there's definitely a lot to learn about it. Like, whenever I first started writing the book, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna write this book. It's so funny. Everybody's just gonna buy it, and I don't do anything. And then you're like, damn, this is like, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do that you're not thinking about. And so, like, I wasn't really sure about the marketing, and as I've gone further along, I'm like, this is the toughest part is the marketing. I don't think
Yeah.
that authors, especially, kind of think about that when they're writing. They're just so focused on like, hey, I got to write this book. I got to get this out there. That's it. It's out there. I'm done. And it's not even the case at all.
Yeah. And this is the thing I tell most people that come to me that want distribution of their book is that, the money to be made in a book may not be in the book itself, but it could be in the back end. Maybe you're speaking, maybe you're, being asked to consult, maybe, you know, uh, somewhere along the line, you're being asked to do something that is not in the purview of that book, but it's outside of that, and you wouldn't have gotten that opportunity without the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it allows you to grow your brand, right? And I don't think authors think about that. I know I didn't think about that when I first started off, but you write a book, you're an author, you're essentially your own brand. And so marketing yourself that way, creating a brand, hey, how do people know me or how do they come find me? And I don't think that, I'm sure there's plenty of authors that do that and have that at top of mind, but when you're first starting out, I don't think that's even something you would consider. And then people are like, brand, you're like, what the heck? I don't sell anything. I just write books, right? But they're like, no, you have a brand.
So, I mean, and I know this is your first book, but what did you do before being an author?
So before I was an author, I was in the military. I was in the Navy for 7 years. I got my degree, got out. A year later, I had my master's degree.
Nice.
They had a dual program at where I went to school at. You could get your master's in 2 years. So the last year of your bachelor's, you got dual credit for master's. So I was like, oh, might as well do to get my master's in 6 years. Then I got out and I did some consulting, some contracting, and then I stumbled upon a job as a compliance analyst, a compliance specialist, if you will. And so I've been doing that for the last 8, 9 years or so. And so, we see a lot of customers' payment networks, how they take credit card transactions. So, once you swipe your card, that's only one piece of the puzzle. Your data goes everywhere else. So, you need a company that's going to come in and assess you and look for vulnerabilities, issues, compliance things, essentially, so that your credit cards are secure and compliant. And so
When
that's
I
essentially what I do.
when I first started accepting credit cards as a business long ago, we didn't have machines to scan things, and we had those big knuckle busters. You put your card
Yep,
down on the plate and go, and by the time you're done, your knuckles are all bloody,
absolutely.
and then people are like, "Why'd you get blood on my credit card?"
It's actually funny. That's like the most insecure way for collecting payments because then you have all these hard copy receipts of clear text, full 16-digit credit card numbers. So you deal with that.
Yeah, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all this? And then, I had to get walked through every night. I'd have to call in and punch everything through on a phone. And I'm like, well, I hope they change this system real quick. And then it was, I think, in 2002 that I switched to PayPal, right after PayPal came out. And I'm not saying that PayPal is the greatest system in the world. That it's not. But for me, I didn't want to lug around all the equipment. You have a monthly fee for this, monthly fee for that, and I think that was the thing I was trading off. You're paying a higher percentage fees to not have the monthly fees.
Yep. Yeah, the fees are definitely where they get you at. I feel like that's for everything. You're like, oh, create this thing, shouldn't be that much. And then you're like, oh, I got to take a payment. That's like 2.5%. You're like, oh, that's not that big a deal. But if you don't sell a lot of things, 2.5% could be a pretty big chunk.
Well, there for a while during COVID, PayPal was up to almost 4%.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was 2.99 plus 30 cents plus this plus, and I get a lot of foreign transactions. So you got the foreign transaction fee, you got this fee, and it's like, wow, 4 or 5%. And then at the end of the year, it's like, wow, I think I just lost $10,000 in fees.
Right. You just gave money away just for all these damn fees.
Yeah. And I think there needs to be an easier way to take credit card payments that helps the small entrepreneur out, because the big entrepreneur like Walmart and Amazon, because they deal in sheer volume, they can have their percentage lowered to about 1% in transaction fees.
Oh yeah, they get special deals too because they have so many transactions. The payment brands and the banks will be like, oh yeah, we'll give you a lower rate if you use our network or you take cards or you accept it this way. So
yeah,
definitely not as much for the little guy, but there's Square, Block, Stripe, things like that make it easier.
Yeah. So I was looking at your website, and you have a phrase on there that I thought was pretty funny: plant a tree, have a child, write a book. It's like,
Absolutely.
who does that? And I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah,
I had
it's like
6
a old
kids and wrote all these books, but I've never
right. It's
planted.
like an old saying. I actually wrote the book. I had a friend reached out to me. He's like, now you just got to write. Now you just got to plant a tree. I was like, you know what? That's funny, and it kind of just feeds into the theme of my life. That just everything seems to happen in the most unconventional, non-traditional ways. Like I had a kid when I was 19 years old, joined the military, had more kids, got my degree. Still haven't planted any trees, by the way, so still taking some recommendations
Well,
on that. But
I
number of
was
kids, and I wrote a book.
I was 19 when my first child came around too, and now I'm 53, and so I feel old.
The time flies, right? I feel like they say they'll keep it having kids to definitely make you look younger, keep you younger. My wife's dad, he's gonna be 67 this year. He barely looks like he's 60, so he has 8 kids.
Wow.
I don't know about 8 kids, but I'm about to have number 5 here in November, so I guess I really can't say anything anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's I have 6 kids, so it's 3 girls, 3 boys, and
Oh, it's perfect.
the oldest is 33, youngest is 17, and it's great.
I do. Yeah, I love kids. I think they're great.
The I think you and I met on LinkedIn, and it's funny because I've met so many people over the course of, I guess, the last year and a half, when I really started getting back into LinkedIn. I mean, I've been on LinkedIn longer than I was on Facebook, but LinkedIn for a long time, I mean, just wasn't getting a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everybody was everybody changed their mind because of COVID, and they're like, "Oh, we want something to do. Let's go on the LinkedIn because we're so upset with Facebook." But I've gained probably 3,000 connections over on LinkedIn over the last 18 months.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and it's just because I'm sharing more. And I didn't used to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you got great content for sure. With all these scammer calls, right? Like you just read the first line, you're like, oh, this is gonna be funny, and then you keep reading. I'm like, man, this is so hilarious. Like the one you had about the Cheeto guy, I was dying laughing. I told my kids about it. I was like, read this, and they thought it was hilarious. They're 16 and 15, so I thought it was
I try to keep these scammers on the phone as long as I can, because if I can keep them on, it just means that they don't have time to scam somebody else.
Absolutely.
And it just started out. It didn't start out that way. I mean, it started out with me yelling at these guys and cursing at them and slamming the phone. And I thought, this is getting me nowhere. Why don't I try something else? And the first time I got on the phone with somebody and just was being very sarcastic, they stayed on the line. They tried to read their script, and it just got funnier and funnier. And I got to jot this stuff down. And
Absolutely. Or the guys that ask you for your social security number and you're like, well, give me yours first. And they actually do. Like, what kind of idiots are you talking to?
they probably don't give me mine. They probably give me somebody else's, but
Right, as Bob's next door.
it's just funny because, if you can get them off script, they say this, some of them just are so funny. But
Yeah.
not every call that I take ends up in my books. I mean, I think every book has 50 stories in it, maybe. And like I said off air, I have enough material to complete book 8, and there's only 5 on Amazon right now, and number 6 is being published soon, and so that right there is 400 stories. But
Yeah,
if
crazy.
if I get 10 calls a day, probably one story is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we chatted also. Beforehand about content, and it's always something people say. Well, how do you come up with the content? For all your books, don't you ever run out of ideas? And like you turned an experience of the meth and the murder and Amazon into a tangible product that you can share with people, that inspires them, that educates them, that entertains them. And that's really all you need to do. You take your life experiences and you take things that have happened to you and you make them into a story, into a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you take, what you're good at. I feel like, if you're funny, be funny, right? If you're not funny, don't try to be funny. People will know, like, hey, this guy's probably not funny. That wasn't very funny, but work with what you got. Don't try to reinvent the wheel, I feel like.
And those people, especially you that have been in the service, you guys have hundreds of stories that you could be sharing out. Now, granted, some of them probably have to go before some military council that say, hey, that's classified.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I mean, you could almost do it like what I did with my book. Like, I actually reached out to Amazon. I was like, hey, can I even use the word Amazon? Because, right, like, is that like a copyright infringement or a trademark infringement? And so, I reached out and I was like, hey, thinking about writing a book. Can I use your name? And they're like, yes, you can, but you cannot say anything derogatory or defamatory about our company. I was like, okay, this is going to be walking a fine line here, but I know how I can do this. And so, you just kind of do that and kind of run with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a friend of mine has written a bunch of books on Amazon, and I don't know how well they sold. I know that sometimes Amazon they look down on a book and say, hey, that's funny, let's promote it, or they'll say, oh no, our name's mentioned in there, and
yeah,
you never sell any of them. So
yeah, it's tough too. And like, I feel like it's the same thing with social media, because I have Instagram and I get blocked every time I post. Like, I post one thing, meth and murders in it, automatically I'm banned for a day. Can't post anything till next, every single time. I think I got like 3 posts one day, maybe, when I was lucky, like way earlier back. But I don't get it. Like, there's got to be other people that post about drugs and post about murders, and they're like digital marketers and stuff. Like, how come I'm getting blocked?
I get these spam texts all the time, and I'll usually respond back, get your free throat punch just by checking this link or whatever, and so I'll share that out on Facebook, and Facebook will ban me for 24 hours because I said throat punch. And I'm like, you idiots.
Right, because they have all those, everything has to be specific content. You can't have anything offensive, right? But if you're doing like a play on like something serious, you're basically screwed, because they're going to block you every time. Right. Like, Meth and Murder is like Meth Murder Amazon. It's a book, right? It's not like Amazon's out there murdering people and making meth, but I'm guessing that's what they think.
There was another thing on your website that I really like, and you mentioned all the people that inspired you. And it wasn't just people, it was things, it was objects, it was, and worked on hundreds, probably thousands of websites, and not one of them has ever said who inspired them. And here you are listing all this great stuff. And it was like, wow, you know, so you are already doing things that are different, that are not the norm. To, you know, I like to say that that's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the inspiration for the book as well. Like, I'm not a avid reader. I read a lot for work, but like, I don't have time to sit down and just read books all day. And so it's like, I'm gonna write something, like I want to write something different, right? And so that's kind of how I started. I was like, you know, whenever you talk, right, you talk in incomplete sentences or run-on sentences. Why can't you write a book like that? And so that's kind of what I went with. And I was like, but I want to make this funny. And so actually, some of the influences on the page are actually influences to the book as well, because I'll have like funny little like comments in the book, or I'll be like, you know, hey, everybody likes The Rock. If you smell what The Rock's cooking, there's like a little like play on that at the end of one of the chapters. There's sing-alongs, there's other things. And so try to take, you know, what's good about comedy, what's good about, you know, things that people like, and try to incorporate it in the book and just try to tell it a different way.
Yeah, you know, you know, I'm looking down your list. You got The Rock, which is, you know, Dwayne Johnson, and then you go down even further, and you got Jelly Beans. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if people who read the book, obviously they know, because like, you know, my mom has early stage lung cancer, but I say she has jelly bean disease. And I actually had a guy review me, and he was like, you know, I didn't like in the book he had this reference to jelly bean disease, because I did a bunch of research and there's no actual thing for what jelly bean disease is. I was like, all right, well, obviously you could tell from the very beginning I put a disclaimer. I changed everything to make it, you know, funny, and also I don't want to like incriminate myself, or people see me at work and be like, oh, who's this guy coming to assess us? Oh, he great, he murders people and makes meth in his garage. Nope, can't have him out here. And so like I try to, you know, separate the two, but even still, like people's like, oh, this seems real, this doesn't seem real, let me go Google it. Well, you're not going to find a jelly
Do
bean
you like
disease. There
the
is none.
Jelly Belly jelly beans, or those god awful big ones that they used to sell in 1970?
Oh no, I like that. I like the jelly belly. I like actually like the Starburst jelly beans. You know, I was thinking about this before. I was like, I should reach out to like the you know, the people who do the marketing and stuff for run for the cure, all this stuff. We should be like, we should have a run for jelly beans. You know, help defeat the dreaded jelly bean disease, and we could market it. You know, help beat cancer.
Well, in 2009, my wife and I celebrated our 20th anniversary with a trip to California,
Oh,
and
nice.
we started down in San Diego, and then drove all the way up to San Francisco, and there's a Jelly Belly factory in above San Francisco, and we toured it,
That's
and
awesome.
you know, I got to see how jelly beans were made, and I think we ended up buying like 40 pounds of jelly beans to bring
Oh
home,
wow.
and so yeah, I like jelly beans, Jelly Bellies, but yeah, after eating 40 pounds of them, yeah, I don't want to see them for a while.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And congrats on the 20 years. Yeah, me and my wife have been married for 17 years. So
Well, it'll be 33,
crazy.
and we just
33.
celebrated 33 in February. So yeah, it's
Dang, congrats. It's a
yeah,
big accomplishment. It's a long time.
it's and my friends say, you know, I know people that committed murder that got off with less time. So
That's funny.
but yeah, it's very cool where, you know, service people can, you know, leave the service, do a lot of great stuff, and then write a book. And not
Absolutely.
necessarily writing a book about the service, about writing something totally different. But, you know, I wish more service members would come out with a goal in mind, with something of some type of training. So when they got out of the service, they're more prone to, you know, whether it be a writer, whether it be, you know, whatever they want to do. But there's a lot that come out that have no goals, no degree, and no direction.
Absolutely. And I mean, that was my goal when I joined the military. Like I wanted to get my degree out of everything. That was, you know, ultimately my goal. And so I was like, hey, join, you get, you know, your VA loan. There's certainly a lot of benefits to join the military. And so I was like, hey, I get my VA loan. I'll get my degree. So at least if I do those two things, like I'll be set up well. And I didn't want to stay for 20 years. I didn't particularly care for the military life. I don't like micromanagers, and that's all they are in the military, is a whole bunch of micromanagers. So I try to be the complete opposite in my day job. I'm like,
Well,
whatever the
now,
opposite of a micromanager is, that's me.
yeah, well, now it looks like, you know, I'm in Pennsylvania, and if you look, I know some of you are probably going to be listening to this on the audio, But for those listening to or watching this on video, you'll see that Jerry is actually on the moon, looking out the window of his house, and we can see the Earth from below.
That's right.
Yeah, new heights.
That's right, new heights.
So, is there a sequel to this book, or are you going to go a different direction with the next one?
So I'm thinking about writing, a series of books, but kind of like Sherlock Holmes, right? You don't have to read them in any kind of order. You can just read a Sherlock Holmes book, and every story is going to be good. And so I'm actually thinking about writing a new book about like from the perspective of a reality TV show producer. And so I feel like sometimes my life's like a reality TV show. So is my wife's family. They're kind of like reality TV shows. Like, wouldn't it be awesome if I wrote from like the perspective of that and have like different little stories I have about them and turn them into, reality TV shows. So each chapter is like a different show. And I talk them through different events or like, hey, keep the camera rolling and we'll like tell a story and then we'll go to the next one and tell a story. So it's like, I don't know if there's anything out there like that or not, but I thought that would be pretty cool. I could also, since I have this book about meth and murder, almost like trial by meth. I don't know if there's anything like that, but there's certainly trial by fire, trial by water. So I talk about how my meth and murder house actually flooded. The basement flooded one time when I was trying to finish it. So I could tell a story about shady contractors. Everybody has problems with contractors, how to pick the right one. So I got good strategies on how to pick the wrong ones for sure. He flooded my basement. Lots of issues doing that, but even in this house, the one we bought after the meth and murder house, our AC pan overflowed and ruined the floor. So I got stuck upstairs for 3 months while they tried 3 times to fix my floors downstairs. So more contractor fun.
Wow. Yeah. Some contractors are a pain in the ass.
And they're so shady, right? They're like, oh yeah, we can do this. They're so full of it, or they like break something like, oh, you just got to do this one thing. It's really quick. But they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And there's
No,
not even like, I feel like there's no good strategy, right? There was like, hey, don't pick the lowest person, they're gonna screw you over. Don't pick the most expensive person, they're gonna take your money. Go for somewhere in the middle. And I try to do that strategy, and even still, that doesn't always work.
well, and sometimes the insurance company will pick a contractor for you without you even saying yes or
Absolutely.
no, and then they come in and they just run the bill up, and their work is crappy, and
Oh yeah.
they have no recourse. But when you talk about sequels and a series of books, I never really sat out to write a series of books. My goal was just to write.
Yeah. I mean, that certainly wasn't the goal when I first started out. Like, I was like, I'm just going to do this one thing. Like, hey, I can say I wrote a book and that's it. And then I started writing. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, I like this. And then I kept writing, kept writing. I was like, oh, this is really fun. I'm going to definitely keep doing this. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, it
I
kind
mean,
of grew on me.
I had written half a dozen books by the time Rob versus the Scammers came out, and I did it just because I wanted to share these funny stories. And then I had all this material left over, and I thought, I should write a sequel. And then it became Rob versus the Morons, Rob versus Humanity, Rob versus the Untitled, Rob versus the Wackadoos, and then I have 3 more titles out there, and then my couple of my clients were like, hey, help us write a sequel. So then, I helped one lawyer write. So what we did is we took his podcast and we created,
Mhm.
episodes based on his podcast. So every 52 episodes of his podcast became a volume of his book. So
Oh, that's
now he
cool.
has 3 volumes out, because a lot of people don't read or watch or listen to podcasts. So, he can just give them the transcripts of the episodes in a book, and they're rearranged a little differently because that way they flow better in a book.
Right.
And then another client, had the concept of the title, but wanted to stick within that, and then every different book in that series covers a different aspect. And so yeah, more and more people now want a series of books based on a certain title, kind of as a way of collecting each one and learning from each one. And but yeah, I've done more business with the series than I have with all the other books that I've written.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I when I first started, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna write this one book and that's it. Like, I don't have any desire to write any other books. And then I started writing. I was like, no, this is fun. I should just do this forever, right? Like, just write books and come up with crazy ideas. And what a better life.
So where, I mean, are you on Facebook, or you just like LinkedIn better?
So I did like LinkedIn better, but I'm noticing more and more like LinkedIn's probably more for businesses, and I'm only an author, so outside of my book, right, I don't have a whole lot to market or offer, so they probably get tired of seeing the same old thing. Hey, some promotion or some post about my book. And so I was like, yeah, I have Instagram, but Instagram blocks me every 10 seconds, so that's annoying. So I'm thinking about going to Facebook.
Are you, one of the things that really helped me when I first started out as an author was sharing pictures of people holding my books.
Yeah. I got a couple of those. That's a good idea because I can add a little section to the website. I like,
Well,
hey,
not only add
I,
it to the website, but post it on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, even make videos out of it. And you know, I, people see those pictures of their friends holding my book, and then they go and buy the book, and then they send me pictures, and I have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of people holding my books, and it never gets old.
Absolutely, it's a great feeling. Yeah, I had a couple of friends that had done that and sent me a photo, and I was like, heck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and if you get a bunch of friends together, even if they're out at a bar or something, give them a copy of your book, tell them to hold it, snap their picture. It's promotional material.
Heck yeah, right? It's the simplest thing sometimes.
Yeah, and but I think that we forget that. We as entrepreneurs think, oh, it can't be that simple. It can't be, we just can't post a picture of somebody holding our book, but that's it. All you have to do is simple stuff. Oh, actually makes you more
Right?
money than no. You
Absolutely.
got to run ads, Rob. You got to run ads. Really? You know what?
I haven't.
I
I
tried
don't think
running
I've used any ads yet.
I tried running ads, Amazon ads, Google ads, very at the very beginning to promote my books, and they never worked. I spent more money than I actually, got money back. But every
Yep.
time I would post a picture of somebody holding my book or reading my book, that's where the sales really took off.
Heck yeah. I think that's tough as well as like I said, the marketing. I think at least for me, it was the toughest part because I was like, yeah, writing will probably be tough. I've never written a book before, but I write hundreds of pages of reports every month for customers for compliance. So I was like, hey, well, might as well do this for a fun thing. I probably might have a good time doing it, and that's what happened. But yeah, the marketing is not always the easiest. And then you're like, hey, how do I stand out? Or what if you're doing something different, right? Like I feel like what I'm writing is completely different. Like there's not really anything out there that combines like suspense with comedy, telling a real story with a kind of made up twist on it. So it's like it fits in its own little special thing. So how do you get like tons of people to see this like special thing? Because it
Yeah,
really could appeal to so many different people. Like if you like to laugh, you're gonna love it, right? Like
yeah.
who doesn't like?
I mean, and reviews are. I don't subscribe to reviews just to get reviews. But what I do is I say, look, if you really love the book, send me a review. Don't post it on Amazon. Don't post it, just send it to me, and and um, and then I'll use it in various things. I'll post it back on the social or whatnot. Put it on my website. You know, I find some of the people who have never read my book try to go to review it, and the reviews sound awful. They're detrimental to because people go to Amazon and are looking for reviews. You know, I'd rather post my reviews places where I really want people to buy my book.
Absolutely.
And if they're buying it directly from me, I'll sign the book, send them another copy, and you know, um, then I think they appreciate it better coming from the author. Um, and I don't always like having my book sold on Amazon. It's great that it's there. It's great that people from other countries are buying my book. But selling through Amazon, you don't get the data list. You don't know who's buying your book,
Yep.
and you got to trust Amazon to pay you you know
What you mean?
what you made, and they can lie.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of different little things and things to consider. And oh man, I wish I would have known this before. And I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, yeah, if I knew now before, if I knew now what I didn't know back then, I probably would have sold a whole lot more copies by then, because I was like, hey, I'm just focused on writing the book. And then I started marketing after I published it, whereas that's definitely not the right way to do it.
Yeah. So how do people get a hold of you? Where do they go?
So you can go to my website, greatden.com. You can also find me on Instagram, greatden, great_den. LinkedIn, same thing, great_den. As well as I think I got a Facebook now, or I'm going to get a Facebook soon. So you can come find me on Facebook.
Facebook. Nobody goes to Facebook.
I mean, that's what I thought, but
They're all
I
on
guess there's a lot
TikTok
of,
dancing and posting the shit.
yeah. I mean, I don't have a TikTok either, so
No.
there's so many different platforms and so many different I got 4 kids. I don't have time to just play around on social media all day, so I got to focus all my efforts into one. So that's why I kind of been using LinkedIn and Instagram fans.
So it's Greatden. So it's GRAKEDEN.com.
Yep. Like it's great then, but it's great then.
And on LinkedIn, it's totally different. It's GS Jerry. And that's how you find him over there.
Yep.
Yeah. So he hides himself everywhere. You just have to find him.
Yeah, hiding in plain sight.
So
I think I actually used that as one of my Amazon keywords. Amazon, hiding in plain sight.
See, that's the title of your next book.
Maybe. No, that's just one of my keywords for this book. Because you get pick 7 keywords for for your keyword generator in KDP, and I was looking for good ones. So I was like, oh, hiding in plain sight, that could be a good one, right? Because I'm out there in the open, and I think I'm murdering people and cooking meth in my garage.
Where are you gonna hide your meth? In plain sight.
Right in the garage, my little 2-car garage. What better place?
So there you go, folks. This is what makes Jerry an e-hero, and go buy his book and laugh and have fun. And I mean, if you're a fan of Rob Versus series, then you'll like Meth, Murder, Amazon. There you go. So enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If not, go back and watch it again, and watch the other 200 episodes on the e-heroes podcast, or watch the videos on YouTube. I mean, they're all binge worthy. Although, I think you have to go through therapy after you watch 200 of them in a row, but you can do it. I have faith in you. Watch them. Adios, everybody.
See you. Thanks for having me on, Rob.